Good morning and welcome to Melco. Let's see if this changes over to me. There it is. Here I am. Just what you wanted to see, my ugly mug. Mike Doe at Melco. And we've got sound going, so give us 1 minute here. Just a couple technical difficulties, and Nate's all over. Cool. Mike Doe at Melco, part of the applications team, and today we are talking about mighty hoops. I got to tell you, I'm very attracted to magnets, and I already screwed up my first joke. But you know, it's a very polarizing topic, so woo. Yeah, my drum set doesn't go off on that one. So today, yes, we're talking about mighty hoops. Some of you probably know mighty hoops very well. Some of you may be going, what the heck is the bald guy talking about? So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest speaker, Magneto. Sorry, we're full of jokes today, so have the comments come in, give me some good magnet jokes or whatever clean jokes you have, and we'll share them with the Facebook group. So a mighty hoop is a magnetized hoop. So when you got your machine from Melco, you've got some of these hoops here that have an outer ring and an inner ring that looks something like this. I think this is our 15 centimeter. And the way this works is you put your material down and then you press it in, and it can be pretty hard on the wrists as well as the palms as well as the shoulders. A guy like me that's had 22 neck and back surgeries, this can be quite extreme on my body. So I really like the mighty hoops, and once again what they are is they still have an outer ring and the inner ring, but when you put the material down in it, and maybe if we could go across the top there, Nate. And so I put my material down on the outer ring. If I needed backing, I would put that first, but we're just showing this right now. And I can just drop this on, and with the magic of magnets, I am good to go. Before I get any further in, I want to let you know that I am here with Mr. Scott Stingle.
Hello, everyone.
And Mr. Nate Moore.
Hey guys.
Nate's back from his European tour. Went and saw the new Prince. What's his name? Abraham or
Archie.
Archie Bunker. No, that was that Happy Days? Archie Bunker?
No.
All in the family.
Edith, yeah.
Edith and Archie. That's right. Right. So, you young people, you're probably wondering what the old guy is babbling about. So anyways, let's clean off our table here, and let's talk a little bit more about mighty hoops. If we can switch over to my computer for a minute, Nate.
Carla says that your presentation is magnetic.
Oh, that is very attractive. Thank you for saying that. So, you know, as I've got the screen up, I just have to throw another joke out there. As we're talking about mighty hoops, they have to harvest the magnets. I didn't know if anybody knew that, and I don't know if anybody knows where they grow. Do you know where they grow?
Where do magnets grow?
Where do magnets grow? They grow in magnetic fields. So yeah, and one more while we're at it. Have you ever fallen in love with a magnet?
I can't say that I have.
Nate says he can't say that he has. I've heard they're very attractive, though. So, okay, back to this. I'm sorry, we have to get a couple jokes in here. So, if you look on Shop Melco and you do a search for mighty hoops, yay, I can actually spell today. Two very easy words. You're going to come up with a search something like this, and you will see mighty hoops about part the way down. You can also go to your machine type. So if you've got an Amaya like a XT, XTS, a Bravo, EMT16 or a Plus, or if you want to just see all the mighty hoops, you can just click on this guy. So we just went through not too long ago and added all of the mighty hoops into Shop Melco. So as of now, every size that we know about, not to say that Mighty Hoop hasn't come out with a new one since yesterday, because they're like all about doing cool stuff, all those Mighty Hoops are up there. So there's a lot of different sizes. a lot of the comments that we get when people get started with these are, what is the popular one? Which one should I start with? And my answer to that, and I apologize, I've got the hiccups all of a sudden. The answer to that is, I believe that the 5.5 inch square has got to be the most popular. And so that's this guy right here. And the reason I think this one is probably the most popular is, as you look at the cool shirt, by the way, props to Scott Stingle for sewing me up some cool shirts. It looks like I'm going bowling, but I'm not. I'm a Melco guy. So you can see that this is a really good, see if I can get it up there like without, well, the cool thing is I'll use laser registration, so I don't have to be straight.
That is absolutely true. And you are way nicer than I am, because I will never answer that question of which size should I get or which size is the most popular. I always answer the question with a question, what are you doing?
Well, that's, you know, probably a good way to do it, because then it probably will be better for the person. But if you're doing left chest stuff, the 5.5 inch is probably a logical size. So we are going to show off some cool stuff today with the Mighty Hoops. But I always get confused. So let's talk about this. Let's get this out of the way. Let's get the dirty laundry out on the table for a minute. There is 3 different names that Mighty Hoop, Hoop Tech, Midwest, those are the 3 names that you might hear. So Midwest Products is kind of the overall company as I understand it. Hoop Tech are the guys that do this stuff, which turns out that are the same guys that do Mighty Hoop. So Hoopmaster, Mighty Hoop, Midwest Products, all the same cats. Jesse and his crew up there knocking it out up outside of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. So this is a US-based company also. Great, great people, and the product is awesome. So Hoopmaster is more of a hooping jig, and so maybe if we can go back over the top, and let me grab a couple things here. Here I was thinking I was all ready to go, but I had the freestyle on, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So what we can do is we can throw this guy, as you see on the screen, you've got a right side and a left side. And then you get this other piece for the hoop. And so the nice thing is you can line it up. If I take off the other piece, like I said, I thought I was ready, but.
While you're doing that, I kind of freaked out because you said right side, left side, and I looked at my hands and I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah, so good point. Thanks, Nate. And I just dropped the board.
Yeah, that's all right.
I feel good.
Sorry for the knock there. Because we're mirroring, the shirt is mirroring us, our right is the shirt's left, and our left is the shirt's right. So what we can do is we can mark, if you, probably hard to see, maybe I can kind of push it like that. You can see that there's a number inside this dot. And then you can also see that I've got a certain position up here with these ABCs. That's where I can pull my neckline to. So I can take and mark that down as I do a job. So let me grab some backing. I had it here somewhere. There it is. And what we can do is we can take, you'll notice on every single Mighty Hoop that there's a large tab at which usually is the bottom of the hoop, and then there's another tab that's longer or wider. So this is like the Scott Stingle tab, and this is like the Mike Doe tab. So that kind of helps you figure out which side to put. Now also, you'll notice that there's a white ring with text on it. And then on the inside of that, which might be hard to see, but there's kind of, yeah, you can hear that. There's like an abrasive, almost like sandpaper built into the hoop. So that is the part that you want to put sticking up. And the Mike Doe part of the tab goes to the bottom. The Scott Stingle part, or I'm sorry, Scott Stingle part goes to the bottom. The Mike Doe part goes to the top. And what's cool about this hoop fixture that Hoopmaster does, is it's got yet some more magnets. So we can actually take and put our backing in there. And I've got this piece a little bit too big, but you get the idea. let's actually just fold that down just a little bit. There we go. And so let me grab a shirt. Any questions come in on Mighty Hoops yet? Any more good jokes? No? Okay, let me see if I've got any more jokes for everybody while I'm doing this. Why is the magnet on medication? Anybody? Anybody? This is a pretty bad one, so I apologize if this is going across the line, but the magnet is on medication because he's bipolar. Yeah, it's a bad one. I'm sorry. I thought it was pretty funny, though. But anyways, you'll see when I put this on, I'm going to pull my neckline to A. I can also feel the sides to make sure that I'm even on either side. And then I can take and let's scoot this over just a little bit so you guys can see it. I can take the inner ring that's got the tabs that hook to the machine, and I can just take and snap that shut, and then I can pull it off. Well, and of course, live TV is always awesome. I can pull it off like so, and let's go back to let's go to the machine for a minute, and we can get a little bit closer. Yeah, so you can see how this material is hooped pretty nice and tight. I'm ready to take it and hoop it through, take and put the neck through the lower arm and snap it right into place.
Can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
So right where you are right now is why the longer piece needs to go away from the machine and the shorter piece goes towards the machine.
Okay.
Because on larger hoops in the back,
it'll hit that.
Yeah, it'll hit back here.
So what Nate's saying, good point, Nate, thank you. What Nate is saying is there's that Mike Doe and Scott Stingle tab, and the reason we want the wider tab to be at the back is so we're not hitting the bucket, as I call it. That notch isn't hitting the bucket. So it wouldn't do it on this 5.5, but as we look at, let me bring over a larger hoop for a minute. Let's say that we had this guy back here, like so. You can see where that would knock into it. And obviously I don't have the right position of the hoop arms for this guy, but you get the concept. So as we're at this view, well, we'll go back to this view for a minute. There are different size Mighty Hoops. There's quite a few different ones. So this is the 5.5 we were talking about. We also brought some other ones with us today. You know, this one here, nice thing is they have them marked on it for you. This one is pretty zonked out. So I think this one is the 11 by 13 or the 8 by 11. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 by 13. This is the 8 by 13. And whenever, by the way, whenever you're storing these guys, do us a favor. Don't put them back together like you're hooping material where you've got the two abrasives together. Take the outer ring and put on top of the hoop and store it like that. And what we've been told from Jesse and his crew at Mighty Hoop is this has a tendency not to drain the magnets or wear the magnets out. So I don't know if magnets can wear out, but we're told this is how you're supposed to store them. So always store the outer ring on top of the inner ring, and so that really helps. But each one of these, yeah, go ahead.
Just from my doing it, I'm far less likely to pinch my fingers storing.
Yeah. So let's, that's something that I didn't mention. Let's go back to the overhead real quick. So one gotcha with these hoops they are very strong magnets. So a couple things, if you have any kind of medical devices like a heart pacemaker, or like I used to have a TENS unit that would give me a neurostimulator type thing that was internally packed into my body, you wouldn't want to have this around because that magnet can screw up those things. And the other thing is you want to make sure that you don't get your fingers in between the two, because it will, I would imagine.
I'm so stressed watching you do that.
Yeah, don't do this, people. Don't do this, okay? So you'll see, and listen to this sound. Ready? Yeah, that would potentially, if your bones were fragile enough, it probably would snap your bone, but it definitely has left a couple blood blisters on me. And I'm sure
In class.
my brothers at arms here could say the same thing. So make sure that your fingers aren't in there. Another reason that you want to make sure that you're using these tabs in the right place is it allows you to pull the hoop apart. So instead of trying to do it from the sides, you want to do it from the center, and then make sure that you keep your hands pulling apart so they don't come squishing down and give you that blood blister that we just talked about, okay? So pretty strong magnets.
You've swapped it.
I swapped it. And see it, it's the magic of film has got me upside down, so.
That's better.
Woohoo! Thanks, Nate. Nate feels better now. So let's go back to the main view. Any more comments at this point? Throwing them out here.
Will magnets, sorry, hold on.
We got one.
Will magnets hurt any boards in computer or embroidery machines? Back in the day, we were told to remove any magnets from anything around the floppies, which, I mean, that was totally true.
Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't take and store, 5 or 10 of your Mighty Hoops on top of your laptop. Probably a bad idea. Just saying it. I don't know that magnets really affect computers the way they used to, like with old hard drives and things like that. But when it comes to the machine, definitely with the covers on the machine, I wouldn't want to use a Mighty Hoop if I had my access cover off my control panel. And I definitely wouldn't want to store my Mighty Hoops onto my control panel if I had it open. So
just because I'm getting twitchy, I wouldn't sew with the cover not on.
Yeah, that's good point, Nate. Good point. But anything that's in the lower arm, anything that the Mighty Hoop would make contact in normal embroidery, it's not going to hurt the embroidery machine. It will not do any damage to the embroidery machine. Now, what it might do is this lower arm. Can we get into the tight view of the lower arm? Yeah, thank you. So this part of the lower arm is metal, and so when we take and put the Mighty Hoop against it, it will take and magnetize to this. So when you're pulling the hoop on and off, you may feel a little bit of resistance. That's no big deal. It's not going to cause any damage to the product. If you start to see any black residue coming off onto your material from this area, what I would do is I would take an alcohol swab and swab this down, because somehow there's probably gotten a little bit of machine oil against the steel and it just needs to be cleaned up.
Or glue.
Or glue, yeah.
Applique glue.
Yeah, and I've heard a couple comments that I've heard on Facebook recently was, I heard of somebody saying, my Mighty Hoops didn't leave a mark on my material, which is another benefit of the Mighty Hoop, is these types of hoops, if they're too tight and the material is very soft, you can damage the material and leave like a hoop burn, which there's ways to get that out if you didn't really damage the material. But the Mighty Hoop, you don't have that problem. But what happened was the lady, I believe, was using spray adhesive, and some of the spray adhesive had gotten inside the rings, and so when she was hooping it, it was leaving some of the residue from the spray on there. So first of all, anytime you're using embroidery spray adhesive, never use any other type of spray adhesive with our embroidery machines, right? But anytime you're using those, yeah, it's just going on its own. Did you see that? It's like a poltergeist. Holy smokes. Anytime you're using spray adhesives, I would really suggest that you make yourself a small ventilation cardboard box. And all you need is just something that's got a filter with a fan that's pulling the exhaust in, and then you just lay what you're going to spray onto it in that cardboard box and let it pull in the adhesive into that filter. A couple of reasons. One is you're going to do damage to any of your computer components. Will be pulling in that adhesive that's in the air. It will damage the embroidery machine after a while. Hook up in the thread access tips. The thread itself will start getting sticky. I mean, I've been to places where you could stick your finger to the tip that the thread goes down into, and you pull it away, and it looked like you had chewing gum on your finger. Ew. So don't be one of those people. If you do a lot of spray adhesive, if it's one here and there, and it's a beautiful day outside, walk outside and do it. But if you're doing production, you know, set yourself up with a ventilation, and there's all kinds of really cool do-it-yourself ventilations if you don't want to go out and spend the money to get you know, a real ventilation system. So back to the magnet question on will it damage the machine? No, it won't damage the machine as long as you use it in normal operation. Computers, I just would suggest, you know, like how we're using them right now is fine, but I just wouldn't set them on top of them and store them on top of a computer. Make sense? Hopefully it does. Cool. A couple other things. Something new that just came out from Mighty Hoop are these rings. And maybe we can go back up above again, Nate. And what these guys do, and let me set them right. Oh, Sue. Yeah, wonderful. Sue Gorton calling me on Facebook Live. Sue, I know you're in Alaska, but denied. Yeah. So, what these guys are, Sue, I'll call you back. I'll also, by the way, a shout out to the Great Frontier is a company in Alaska that Sue was just at, said they absolutely love our Facebook Live videos. So shout out to the Last Frontier, I think is the name of the company. But anyways, back to this guy. What this does is in some cases you cannot get the Hoop Tech hooping system inside of a product. So what this does is it allows you to take and lay this down like we want it, right? And then you take and you put down the piece of backing. Then you take and put, oops, I did this wrong. We put this in first, like so. Sue got me all screwed up. And then you put this over it like that. Actually, I think I was right to begin with. Yes, I was.
I have no idea. I haven't seen these. I'm very excited.
So you put this ring down first. Okay, take two. Okay, you put this ring down, you put the backing on it, and then you put this on top of it. And what that does is it holds the backing in place.
That's awesome.
We take and put our material over the top of it. So let's say we're going into a backpack or something. So we can slide this into the backpack, and then we take, let's make sure I got this the right way.
I think you got it backwards.
Yep. And so I snap it shut. I only need one of these rings for each size that I'm going to use it. Right now they only have it for the 5.5 and the 7.5 square. But yeah, there you have it. So I think I might still have done that wrong. So let's try that one more time. So take 3. So we've got this nifty little ring.
Do the ring third.
Third?
Do the blue piece first.
Blue piece first.
Flip it around.
Yep.
No, long piece towards you. There you go. Then the backing.
Then the backing, got it.
Now sandwich it.
Ah. So Nate is paying attention. Okay, so there we have that. Now we put our material down.
I think so.
Let's try this again. By the way, I just got this from Mighty Hoop. If you haven't already figured out, I haven't played with it much. And this way?
I think so.
Yes. Like that. And now we take off, oh, look at that. Now we take off that ring. So this ring can be used, you only need one of these rings for the size you have. So this guy's hoop, now I can hoop the next one. So we will have these on our website. They said that they should start being able to ship these within the next couple weeks. So as soon as we can, we'll get them up, and we'll put a post on Facebook that these are available.
So Judy's asking, can we show the wide arm hoop,
Oh,
which
cool.
we're going to get to.
Yep.
But there's another question from Denise, which is the most common question I get.
Okay.
Like, she sees us hooping on scrap fabric, and so who cares, right? But for straightness and you know, production embroidery, do you need the fixture?
Yeah, can we go back to the screen? No problem. So the question is do you need the fixture to be straight? So, and I believe Judy is the one.
To use Mighty Hoops.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, no, you don't. You can always take and put down a piece of painter's tape to show straight before you hoop it, and then you can take and hoop it. But I would suggest Mighty Hoop has something else that's pretty new out. Can we go to my computer? So what they have out is they have this guy called a adjustable Mighty Hoop. So before it used to be that you would have to buy a Hoopmaster hoop fixture for each size hoop that you have, but now they've got this thing called a adjustable, and that is the adjustable hoop fixture right here. So what this guy does is it allows you to adjust not only to the 5.5 but to the 7.5. It really adjusts to almost all except, and it tells you down here which ones it won't work for. So it won't work for the 375 round, or the 4 1/4 by 16, or the 17 by 16. The rest of them, it'll take and actually adjust to it. I've got a link here that we'll post, and it shows that hoop actually being used and how it works from Hoopmaster. So they're using it in the with the free standing. But to get back to the question, no, you don't have to have this. But if you want to be consistent and you want to do production instead of taping, which is not very efficient, I would suggest getting the freestyle that works on multiple different sizes. It also will work on some of the new Allied hoops that we're carrying. So if you're not into the magnets, you can also use that freestyle for different size square, rectangle hoops. It won't work for round hoops, but square and rectangles up to a certain size. So if you're doing production, I would get it. If you're okay with taping it, and then it doesn't really matter if you get it straight, you could use the laser alignment. Go back and watch some of our videos on that, and then you're always going to get straight, like what Mr. Stingle did on my shirt. So yeah, that's the answer to that. The other one that we wanted to talk about, Judy's like really excited to see this, so I want to talk about it. That is the large hoop. So the large hoop, this is not the largest one. There's one that's 17 by 16, I think. And the thing to keep in mind is some of these hoops are actually, the inner part of the hoop is actually larger than the physical sew field of the machine. So you may get this hoop that is humongous. It's not that big, I promise, but you get the point. There may be parts of that hoop that you can't actually sew in because it's outside the physical sew field, the physical movement that the machine can do. It's outside that. In some of these larger hoops, you may need to have a set of different hoop arms. And so you see these hoop arms, they actually bend out and over. We'll take and put this on here in a minute to show you how that works. But these are optional hoop arms that don't come with the machine. As you look in Shop Melco, as you're looking at the different hoops, it will tell you in Shop Melco if you need these extended hoop arms or not. So make sure as you're looking through those hoops to identify if you need them. And if you don't have them and you decide that's something you need, make sure that you get a pair of these, because it would be an awful bummer for Christmas to come, you get this Mighty Hoop and you don't have the the toys to make it work, like the batteries for the remote control or something. So
other things about making these hoops fit our machine, there are questions going on about the height difference between the lower arm and the can you speak to that? The lower arm and the bottom of the hoop.
Yeah, so if we could go back to the machine.
That one?
If we look at, and let's see if I can get this right, and just look at the camera.
Yeah, you can go here.
There we go.
Easier.
Oh, cool, cool. So you can see the arms and see how they're bent down. You want to make sure that you've got these the right direction. We've seen them where these arms were put up. And so what will happen is, if I try to fold this up, if my finger is the lower arm where the needle plate is, if those bends are the wrong direction, the needle plate will sit off of, or the material will sit off of the needle plate. And that'll give you something called flagging. So flagging will cause needle breaks, poor embroidery, thread breaks, skip stitches, loop stitches, just awful, awful Armageddon type of embroidery stuff going on. We don't want those demons around, so make sure that you have those tabs going the right way. The other thing that we've seen is as we turn this guy, and we'll get it a little bit closer, I love having something detailed like this, you'll see that there is actually a number on this guy, and this will tell you that you have the right hoop tabs for the right hoop. So make sure, we've also seen where people would get 2 different types of Mighty hoops, and they'll install the wrong hoop tabs on it. Or they'll get 2 of these 5.5s, and they'll take and put this hoop tab, which is the one that goes on the right side. They'll put both of them on one hoop, and then they'll put the other hoop will get both of these, and then of course it won't lock into the machine. So make sure that you're paying attention. When the hoops come in, typically they won't come in with these installed on them. So once again, what Nate was talking about is make sure that you have the bend the right way, so that we always want that needle plate to be resting or just a bit lower than the material, so we don't have that flagging issue. And then make sure that you've got the hoop tabs on the right side. Cool? Great. So let's take a look at putting these extended hoop arms on. You will have a pack of, and let me grab these guys. And I don't know that this one is the right one, but you get the idea. You will have a pack of Allen wrenches that came in your, is that called the operator's kit now? I always get that one mixed up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the operator's kit will have a little set of these. The biggest Allen wrench on that one side, that's the one that you want to use. And we're going to get in here, and I'm going to go ahead and engage E-stop so I can move the hoop arms around so you guys can see them a little bit better.
That's dusty.
Typically, yeah, we've got some dust going on in Colorado. It's crazy weather, man, crazy weather. You never want to over tighten these screws. I've been places where I see them and it looks like they're having an arm wrestling match with the machine because they're tightening those things down so much. They'll actually break. These Allen wrench bolts will break off before the machine gets damaged. So that is a safety feature. Instead of stripping out these nuts and causing potentially a technician to have to come out and either replace these helicoils, or potentially, if it's bad enough, have to replace this whole bucket, these bolts will bust. So only get them tight enough that, you know, like Nate, he's got a pretty good grip. He actually just does it with his fingers, and that's as tight as he goes, I believe. Is that right, Nate?
I typically go just, well, with the cap driver I'll do that, but with the other stuff I'll go just a quarter turn more.
Quarter turn more?
And that's it.
Scott?
Another, I use the Allen wrench.
Okay.
But yeah, I go about 1/8 of a revolution, not
So
a full quarter.
Eighth to a quarter, it sounds like, between the three of us. So what, we have another question?
Yes, lady with a E16 is wondering on Shop Melco how you showed the Mighty hoops. Which one would it be compatible with hers? Answer is the MT16, right?
Yeah, so the E16, you can look at the EMT16 and or the Mighty hoops. So your sew field is the full sew field of that machine with the Bernina E16. So yes, anything that EMT16 can use, the Bernina can use as well.
I would check in your software too to see what's supported in your software.
Yeah.
You can look at that first.
Yeah, so if we can go back to the main screen.
Yes.
Quite a few. Oh, we're stuck.
Oh, you said main screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, me.
I thought you were
Hi
talking
there.
about your computer.
You're right, yeah. Goodness. So we have just gone through, like I'd mentioned earlier, we've just gone through and added all the Mighty hoops into our hoop database. The release software for Bernina, for Bravo and for Melco do not have all those hoops in there. We will, before the end of the week, we will have a new hoop database to Dan Sweeney and his team over in customer service, and they are customer support. I always get that mixed up. Is it support or service? They're just wonderful guys. So let's just call them angels. The service angels will have them up, and then you can just download that hoop database, and in the advanced view, you'll at least be able to use all those hoops. So we'll be getting a new version out soon that has it in the simplified user interface as well. But for now, look by the end of the week, or look on the Melco service site to see that new hoop database and update it. And it has all the hoops, all the mighty hoops that we knew of, at least as of yesterday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's that. So now let's put these guys on. And I always get, I have to look at these because I don't use them very often, but I think you want to go from the inside position.
You can't see that one because of my angle.
Okay.
The other one.
Yeah, so let me get this guy started.
And while Mike's, it's officially technical support. Whatever.
Technical support. Thank you, Dan. I kind of like the Angels.
I'm still thinking of Melco's Angels, and I hear Charlie's Angels theme song in my head, and it's pretty good.
So Dan needs to change his name to Charlie.
There we go.
Okay.
Hi, Charlie. While Mike is doing this, one thing to keep in mind while you're looking at some of these things and looking at the support of these on other websites is I've noticed that the dimensions are not always consistent. You may see height by width. You also may see width by height. So take a look at the image of the hoop on screen and see, is it portrait or landscape? Are you really dealing with what you think you are? And then when we're looking at it in our software and our database, I've tried very hard, and if I missed one, please let me know. But it should all be listed by width first, then by height.
Yeah, so we always, all of the Melco hoops, and if you find one that isn't that way, email me or call in and ask for me, and I'll get you a $20 credit on Shop Melco if you find a hoop that is on Shop Melco or in our latest hoop database once it comes out that is not width by height. So not the old stuff, but the new stuff.
You're now bribing people to find my mistakes.
Absolutely,
right.
Because then if you find enough of them, then you get to come to Melco and throw a pie in Nate's face. So it's just a big treat. So once we have these hoop arms in, and what I wanted to show, I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, so maybe I can move the machine a little bit. With these guys, there we go. With these guys, I am in the inboard, so there's two positions that we can use the regular hoop arms with, right? We can use them in the inner position, and typically that hoop looks something like this. Or we can move those hoop arms out, and we call this the inboard position and the outboard position of the regular hoop arms. What this extended hoop arm does is it uses the inboard inner position bolt and the outboard inner position bolt to mount, okay? So there's only one way that it can go on, so you can't get it mistakenly lined up. The only two holes that it'll line up with are those two inboard positions, the inboard and outboard inboard. So setting up boards.
The outside of that bracket, if you try to go too far out, will hit the curve, right?
Yeah, it'll start to hit this curved part of this bucket. So yeah, you can see how we can't go out any further. These guys are really nice, especially for the heavier materials. They are good. You know what, Scott? Would you mind taking a cruise and grabbing us a tabletop?
Which size?
Whatever we got that you can get. Like small, medium would be great.
Okay.
So while Scott is doing that, I totally want to show you how to put a tabletop on as well, because some of these hoops are so large. Like if you did a Carhartt jacket with this stuff, you would definitely want to use some kind of support table to keep it from sagging.
It gets a little weighty, yeah.
Yep.
It gets a little heavy.
So once those arms are in, we can see that this slides in, and there we go. So you can see how much, and we have a gap over here.
Widen that shot a touch so you can see a little better.
Yeah.
I can't see what I'm doing because I turned it for you.
Thanks for being patient with us today. It's kind of a polarizing topic today. So, although it's a very attractive and magnetizing, and by the way, Magneto loves our jokes today. So, yeah, this guy is good. You can see that there's a gap over here that you can still have that Carhartt jacket hang down. But I would just caution you to make sure that that material is not so much over here that as it moves closer to the lower arm, and keep in mind I've got E-stop engaged right now, that's how I'm moving my, but I've seen it where people will be over in this corner and the material will be so bunched up in this area that it'll cause the machine to think that there is a mechanical bind, and it'll give you a X and or a Y, which is X is always our side-to-side motion and Y is front and back. It will cause you to get an X or Y tracking error in this area. So as you're putting the material on, make sure to pull that up. And what I like to do is, we'll use my t-shirt for an example. If I've got that material sticking down like this, what I'll do is I'll pull it up and I'll tuck it back into this bucket. So that bucket is there for a reason. A lot of people don't realize it, but that bucket is actually there to hold that material back so that it's not causing that bind or potentially getting caught back underneath the hoop and sewing the hoop into the to the garment itself. So don't be afraid of using that. I would, if you haven't used it before or if it's been a while, or when you're cleaning your machine, make sure to clean that bucket area because it has a tendency to get dust bunnies.
It's a dust bunny farm.
Love to migrate there. So death to the dust bunnies back in there. So
I have also seen, and it's getting the season to find this, but for thinner materials that you still want to get tucked up out of the way, I have seen people stick the material in there, but then also stick a segment of like a pool noodle to like hold it into place so it doesn't slide out.
That's a great idea.
It's pretty cool, right? And we're getting close to that time of year, so.
In fact, I was just at Walmart the other day and they had cases upon cases of pool noodles. So a pool noodle and show how to do that. But anyways, make sure that you're using that bucket for what it's for. So that's the extended hoop. And then if you're using something that's pretty large, if we can go back, thank you. And Scott, thank you for running and getting this. So this guy is our medium tabletop. And what he has is, as we look at it here, he has kind of a T-rail like the the shaft support for our cap driver system. So if we go back to the machine, and you see down here on the bottom of the lower arm, there's a slot for that. So if we take off our hook guard, and always make sure that you put your hook guard back on. Don't be a Mike Doe and forget to put it on and suck a garment into it, because that is not cool. And let's see if I can find, yeah, so the size of that looks like it's a size 2mm screw that holds the hook guard on there. And let's see if I can get this guy. Chris Fenton must have tightened this guy down.
Chris Fenton shouldn't do that, because if you completely wail on it,
Yep.
you can squish those little
fingers. So if you see this guy, look how much
Chris.
that one is squished out. So don't over squish these guys. It's plastic guys, so
well,
it's.
To be honest, we used them in class, this machine in class last week. So.
Oh, so someone might be guilty other than Chris.
It might not be Chris.
Okay. So then what we're going to do is, you see that we have this this T-slot in here. It typically will come with the bolt all the way screwed up. So see how high that is? You want to lower that down before putting it on the machine. You want to lower it down so that it's in line or just barely sticking up with the metal, okay? If you don't do that, you might have a chance to knock the hook with that bolt, and that wouldn't be good. So make sure that you lower it down. And then we're just going to take and we set, and it looks good. We're going to just set it on there, and then that slot typically will just line up on its own, and then we just tighten up the bolts. And we are good. So that allows us to have support on top. What we'll do is we'll put in the comment section the part numbers for these tables. See, this is the medium size. We've got another one that is a smaller size. It's probably maybe a third of the size of this guy. And then we've got one that is a full tabletop that actually has posts that go down to the arms. The answer that someone's going to ask is the small and medium tabletops work for the E16, the Bernini E16, all the Bravos, all the XTs, XTSs, EMT16, EMT16 Plus. The only one that's different is the large tabletop. There's a different table for the EMT16 and EMT16 Plus, and then we still have a large tabletop that fits the Bravos, the E16s, the XTs, the XTSs. So we'll make sure that we put those part numbers on later, but the tabletop's a pretty cool thing. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, can the EMT16 Plus use the whole sew field of the 16 1/4 by 17 1/4 Mighty hoop?
And the answer, I think, is almost but not quite.
Yeah.
And the real answer is check in your software. Do you have that hooked up so that you can show it?
Yeah, I believe. Let's see if that hoop, I don't know that we updated this hoop database, but let's try it. So if you can swing over my way. So once again, this is a good thing too, is I get a new hoop. We hear this quite often. I get a new hoop and it doesn't show up in my hoop data, or my hoop options. If you get that, Melco Service, Dan and the Melco Service Angels, whatever we decided to call them. What was this? Technical support? Yeah. Okay, we'll call them by the right thing because Dan's going to be mad at me if I keep calling them the Angels. Have a great deal. If you go to Melco-Service and type in hoops, it'll tell you how to add hoops. It does that Melco-Service FAQ thing is a lifesaver. I love it. I use it all the time, and supposedly I know a lot, but I don't. So, you go to Tools, Hoop Setup, and then Customize Hoop List. And what we're looking for is the Mighty Hoop 16 by 17, or 17 by 16, or...
Yeah, you're close. It should just be there.
Right there. So 16 and a 625 by 17.25. We're going to click it. We'll hit Apply. OK. Do I really need to hit Apply? No. Just hit OK, but it's just a bad habit of mine. The hoop shows there. And so what we can do is we can zoom in, and you will see that down at the bottom, the dotted line, the light gray with the hash dot, that's the actual sew field of the machine. And then this, this consistent dotted line that's more of a black color, that's the hoops sew field. But you can see that this bottom part, or the part closest to the operator, there is a little bit of the field that you cannot use.
So the area that you can sew in is where those two overlap. And if you're using the other side of the software, the simplified interface, I believe it only shows you where those two overlap. But if you're in the advanced mode here, you got to look at it, and so look at it there and see where those two overlap, and that's what you actually get for a sew field.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question. Just looking at the size of the hoop, 17 1/4 is larger than the sew field of our machine. I believe the way that I always look at our sew field is it's just right about, give or take a little bit, of 16-inch square. And I know that's not exact. You can look on Melco-Service to see the exact sew field of the machine, but it's approximately a 16-inch square.
So which would be the best tabletop to use with the 16 by 17 Mighty Hoop? Medium, or would they have to go large?
So it kind of depends on what you're sewing. If you're sewing a horse blanket that is not a tubular good, I probably would stick with the large hoop, or the large tabletop. If I'm sewing a Carhartt jacket, I probably would stick with the small tabletop, especially if I'm trying to do a lot of sew field, and obviously I am if I'm using that large of a hoop, because it's not a flat good, it's actually tubular. Even though we can unbutton it, it's still got the parts that have to hang down. I probably would go with the small tabletop with a Carhartt jacket. Something flat like a horse blanket, I would use the large tabletop.
If you're doing both, I would stick with the smaller one.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would need.
Yeah, if you're yeah, that's a good point, Nate. If you're doing both and you're like, you know, I can't justify spending that money, I don't have any return, or it's going to take a long time to get a return on my investment, yeah, go with the small tabletop. Also, one other thing, if we can zoom in on the tabletop again, these tabletops, just like the support table that comes on the EMT16 Plus, they come with tape, tape on these to protect. I know that some of you like to leave that on, but I prefer to take it off because if it starts to get a groove on it, it'll actually catch on the material and pull it around and actually cause either embroidery hiccups or it'll actually cause like goo to get on the back of your product that you're sewing. So man, we have hit a lot of stuff in just a very simple topic like Mighty Hoops. Is there any additional questions at this time?
I think we're caught up.
All right, so I got one last good joke for you, and I just want to make sure I look at it to make sure I get it right. So what did the science teacher tell the kids that were working with magnets? He's going to tell you the same thing I'm going to tell you. Let the force be with you when you're using Mighty Hoops. Mike Doe, Scott Stingle, Nate Moore, all of the great people here at Melco wishing you a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you, guys.